everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connerton, and to my right, always ready, the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
What's happening, brother? What's happening?
I heard they call you AR Hopper because you're always ready.
No, that's because of my guns.
Oh, okay.
AR-15s. I love AR-15s.
That's the reason. Sounds like a country singer, doesn't it, AR Hopper?
What the heck did I do? I was putting a trigger in one of my ARs the other day, and I wish I could. They had a beautiful Christian poem. I wish I had brought it with me. I should have brought it with Timmy Trigger. They make triggers for AR-15s and other triggers and stuff like that. And they just had a beautiful Christian poem that came with the trigger, which seems kind of like a little bit of a contradiction, but I thought it was really cool. But
hey, whatever trips your trigger.
Ah, there you go.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I did. I know that. You were. You're a pretty fart smeller. So anyway, today we have Penny Dean, who is now you were associated with Go New Hampshire. I don't even know what your association is now.
I'm here in my individual capacity.
Individual.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You were associated with Go New Hampshire.
I'm a member of Go NH.
You're Go New Hampshire, but
Yeah.
you were on the board, weren't you?
Nope, I've never been on the board of any organization like that.
Oh, okay.
Nope. Because when you're on the board, then you can't do some of the other cool things.
Oh.
When you're on.
Penny has these really cool cards.
Oh, no kidding.
Did you get a
I
cool
did
card?
not. She didn't give me
Oh, I should give you. They're really cool.
Yeah, they're colorful.
Yes, and they're important because they have your rights on the back. And
I
that,
have rights on the back.
Yeah, because you want to know what your rights are, don't you?
Yes, I do. That is
Yeah.
actually a nice card.
Thank
It
you.
is, yeah, with
Thank you.
actual useful information.
Yes, it's very important because
Yeah.
it tells you, for example, when you have law enforcement encounters, how to get away as quickly as you can legally before you get biffed for something you probably didn't do.
Right.
And so it specifically talks about asking, am I free to go now? Because if you continue to stay, what courts will say is you had a consensual encounter with them. You were just there standing there. Most people with the blue lights on behind them don't feel free to just drive away.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to say to them repeatedly, am I free to go now?
Or I've also heard people say, am I being detained?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that the same thing, just different wording?
Well,
Or
it's-
is
So
there a
okay,
difference?
I get pulled over.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Before I'm strip searched again, because that happens all the time.
Yes.
I think it's by Bob Marley T-shirts I wear. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't
The
know.
cops just can't keep their hands off.
Well, yeah, it's also just being wicked cute.
Sure. Sure.
I get pulled over by the police.
Yep.
They have a right to ask for my license and registration. Correct.
Yeah, but I asked specifically from the beginning, why am I being detained?
Right.
Because they can't just detain you because they feel like pulling over blue cars that day or pink cars that day or green cars that day. They have to have a reason to detain you.
Yeah, but usually they lead off with, "Do you know why I pulled you over?"
And I come back with, no, please tell me why I'm pulled over.
Right.
Okay? Because if you tell them, that's like an admission. Oh, yeah, because I was speeding 55 and a 45. Bing, you're got, right?
Right. Right.
So I come back with, no, actually, I don't. Could you please tell me?
Okay. Yeah. So saying, oh, because you know I have 15 pounds of marijuana in my trunk. Is that why you pulled me over? That isn't the correct answer.
It isn't.
It isn't the correct
No.
answer.
No.
And even the fact, here's the way I look at it, is the fact that I'm a private individual and I don't have anything illegal in my vehicle, but I'm still not going to let them rip it apart and search and keep me beside the road.
Right.
I'm going to ask to be sent on my way.
Right.
And so, because they get to that point, well, you don't mind if I look in your car? And my answer is, yes, I do. Am I free to go now?
Right.
And you keep saying until they tell you, because if not, what happens is it makes it more difficult for a lawyer to defend you and do what's called suppress if you voluntarily stay. Because what happens a lot of times, what the police do at the end of, let's say, an encounter where they've given you a citation or a warning or whatever, they continue to talk to you. And at that point, the court will say it was consensual. You decided to stay after the stop.
Okay.
And most people don't feel free to leave at that point.
Right,
Because
yeah.
so that's why you have to make it explicit. And I make
Why is it that the court sees that as consensual when they have a set of blue lights in back of you, they have a gun on their side, and they have the authority of the law?
Yeah.
Why on God's green earth would they believe that to be a consensual conversation, as if
When
you
the
would,
threat of force is present.
when the threat of force is absolutely present?
You know what? That's a good conversation or a good question. And it really is something that I think the judges are wrong on. And here's what I tell people all the time. I don't agree that a lot of things they decide are right, but I don't wear a black robe, nor do I wanna. But the
Right.
bottom line is that as long as the person wears a black robe makes that decision, you're stuck with it. And what we have to do is change those decisions.
Right.
You know, because you have years and years ago, black people weren't humans; they were property.
Right.
And just because people in black robes said it, didn't make them right.
No.
Okay, and so today, and for example, Japanese Americans were interred.
People in those white robes used to say that too.
They
They
still
were-
do, actually.
yeah,
still
they,
do?
and
Well,
they're
some
still
do, yeah.
wrong, and they're still wrong. You know, I don't care what color robe they're wearing or what side.
Right,
They
right.
what they're saying is wrong, and so
So you're not like a robe racist.
I'm an equal dislike bad robes person. Bad robe, you know, people that do bad
Could
things
we
in robes.
establish that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you know, the bottom line is that if they're doing something that's wrong, I don't care what color the robe is. Wrong is wrong.
Right.
And so it's really something that I think the courts are wrong, and I would like to see them walk a little towards what I call the practical reality side of things. But I don't see that happening in the near future. I wish it did. I think that the same bleeding hearts that think healthcare is constitutional, maybe they could think about police stops the same way.
Right. Right.
You know.
And what isn't constitutional?
Yeah.
No. Steve's ringtone is so cool.
That is cool.
He's got like a what is it? What do you call it?
Sci-fi,
Sci-fi
yeah.
ringtone. I just love it.
Very appropriate for Halloween.
Oh, it is. It is. Hey, before we get started, Penny was also a lawyer that deals a lot with the Second Amendment stuff, and that's one reason I wanted to have her on. And I haven't had her go on for a long time. And you're a delightful lady. And we've worked together in the legislature on a myriad of things, and it's
Steve has a question for Penny.
go.
So here's my question. Do you think that the law enforcement agencies are getting away with a lot more of what they're doing nowadays because of the fact that a lot of people are uneducated about their constitutional rights?
Okay, let me repeat that because mics don't pick you
Or
up
they're
over the.
not teaching it in school anymore.
So are law enforcement agencies getting away with more today because they're not teaching in school about constitutional rights?
Absolutely. It's a huge, huge, huge problem. I was in a particular law enforcement place yesterday and speaking to some other people were there, and one woman who was probably between the age of 25 and 35 told me she didn't know how to sign her name. She only printed her name. And I said, why is that? Well, we didn't learn cursive in school.
Yeah.
And I said, I thought it was a joke, right?
No, my 16-year-old daughter's the same way.
Yeah.
Steve, do you want to come sit next to her? Because they can't hear you one.
Yeah, just come on over.
Come on
Yeah.
over. Well, obviously, this isn't going to stop anytime soon. I don't-
Yeah. So here's what's happening is that, at least from my perspective, they don't teach what I call civics. When I went to school,
Yeah.
where they called it civics or social studies,
Yeah.
and they don't teach that. They don't teach that at all. As a matter of fact, the behavior in schools teaches the opposite. For example,
Compliance.
Right,
Yeah.
they have what is called a school resource officer. It's a cop in a school. You can call it whatever you want. It's a cop in a school. Secondly, we have searches of kids' lockers in school, for goodness sake. And what does it teach them? Comply, comply, comply. And I think that's a bad lesson because kids, I learned a long time ago, kids learn more by your behavior than they do by your words.
Right.
Right.
And so kids see that, and then how do you teach them to resist searches? They're like, well, they search our lockers all the time. And they're really not taught. I don't have children. If I did, I don't think I would put them in public schools for many reasons. Because I could not let them sit there and sit in the corner in a room and cower with the teacher over them when they're being attacked. Now, of course, they're teaching them something a little better, which is use every weapon at hand, be it a eraser or anything, which is at least something active.
Yeah, you're
Right.
talking about in case of a school shooting
School
that they
shooting
should
or
attack rather than sit there and.
But for years and years and years, we were taught the passive way. They taught the passive way over people like my objections.
Well, you know what's funny is because that's actually what they're starting to teach kids in school. Ben Carson got raked over the coals for saying that that's what you should. You know, he would, if he was in a situation like that, he would be inclined to attack rather than sit there and.
He's right, but he's anti-gun. Have you read a lot of his positions? The man is not a pro-firearm person, which is really funny that he's saying that.
Oh, okay. I'd have
Yeah.
to read more
Yeah.
because I don't. I know that he's before he got into the political arena, he said some dumb things, but
No, even in the past, I'm trying to think how old the radio interview is. It's not that old, but he basically was saying that people in the cities shouldn't be allowed certain guns, but people in the country need them. And I'm just like, wait a minute here.
He's said a lot of bizarre things.
yeah, but I think
now
I believe that he's saying that because he's not a politician and he hasn't carefully crafted out everything he should or shouldn't say yet.
he thinks out loud.
He thinks out loud, and I think he'll come around.
I'm-
It's better than Bush. See, Bush Jr., who came out and said absolutely he was going to support the continuation of the assault weapons ban.
To this day, I'd like someone to tell me what an assault weapon is because I don't know what one is.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about,
okay,
but
yeah.
I don't know.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I don't know what one is, but I think I'm really disappointed, actually, with a few exceptions, of the crop of what they call Republicans that are running
Okay.
with their lack of Second Amendment support. Donald Trump has a long history of giving to anti-gun politicians and making anti-firearm statements.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could go down the list. So in general, I'm just really disappointed in the crop, and I really hate to do what some people call throw away my vote. But if I have a choice between like a Mitt Romney and whoever, I'll vote Libertarian.
Right.
I'm not going to vote for
Well,
someone who's
That's what I end up doing.
what I'm saying is I understand that really takes a vote away from a Republican. But if they can't support my Second Amendment rights, what the heck good are they?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's tons and tons more people like me, many of us, that are doing that we finally decided we cannot, in good conscience, go in there. The last time I did that where someone said, look, if you don't do that, we're going to throw the election. I voted for Bush. I regretted it every darn day I did it. So,
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. I just think I'm kind of leaning towards Ben Carson, so I'm a little defensive. Only by virtue of the fact I'm looking at the big picture. And I read a different way to look at the Bible. A different way to look at the Bible is instead of looking at it like it's God's word, inspired word of God, which is how I look at it as a history lesson on what is good and not good for society. In other words, if you do A, B, C, and D, society will prosper. If you do D, E, and F, it will fail. And 2 Timothy 3 was talking about the characteristics of those who will be at the end. They'll be lovers of themselves and boasters and everything else. And I was going down the list, and it was like a description of Donald Trump. Whereas then you go over to Ben Carson, and the guy is so brilliant but humble. It's just I love his character.
well, you know what? I'll tell you what. The Second Amendment is really of concern to me this legislative term in New Hampshire. Because the amount of LSRs that are out there that, at least by their title, are going to be anti-firearm scary.
Now, for viewers who don't know, what's LSR stand for?
Legislative Research, LSR, Legislative Service Request.
Okay.
That's in other words, I'm just getting an LSR finalized probably tomorrow. And it's basically a request to the legislative services to write a bill for you.
Okay.
And then you sign off on it, and then it gets assigned a bill number probably sometime at the beginning of January or the end of December.
Okay.
Yep, and so in other words, what it is when a state representative wants to sponsor a particular piece of legislation. As he said, they go to legislative services and ask them to draft it up in legalese that no one can read or understand. So all of us lawyers have plenty of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes I don't think the people over there actually litigate or do this type of thing because some of the stuff that comes out of there is really nonsensical sometimes. But particularly this year, the ones that really concern me is by Representative Catherine Rogers. She has put in a whole slew.
Where's she from?
She, you know what? I would presume Merrimack. She used to be the Merrimack County Attorney.
That's a name I haven't heard. Yeah.
Merrimack County Attorney.
Catherine Rogers, yeah, used to be the Merrimack County Attorney. She's
okay.
now a state rep. And she's been,
Republican or Democrat?
I believe her, you know what, I don't know. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. I believe she's a Dem, but I don't know that.
Is there any way you can find out?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
check. And she's put forth several bills. One which is really kind of redundant, establishing a criminal penalty for providing a firearm to a person prohibited from possessing a firearm. That's already against the law under federal law.
It's against the law, but isn't the operative term knowingly? Like, in other words, Steve, I've known Steve for years, and if he said he wanted to buy a pistol off me, I would probably say, depends on which one, if I wanted to sell it.
She is a Democrat.
But if he was asked me to buy a pistol, I'd say sure. Why? Because I know he's a good family man, he's a good guy, and all this other stuff. Whether or not he's a felon would be entirely up to him to know, not me. So how does that work?
Well, the problem is we haven't seen a lot of these with LSR's legislative service request. All they have is a
I'm
little
talking about the
snippet.
federal component. You said this is already covered under federal law.
It absolutely is.
So privately selling him a rifle or a handgun or anything else is not against federal law. But if he's a felon and I didn't know it,
Or otherwise prohibited from a domestic violence misdemeanor.
right, the same thing.
From a particular state. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing, there's still plenty of...
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, if I don't know, am I still culpable for selling it to him?
You know what we don't know because we haven't seen the
She was
language
looking
of
at
her.
me like, is he a felon?
No, I'm not.
Every time you say that and you put it, she's just like, is he a felon? Okay, wait a minute.
Wait,
Let me think up this question a little more.
She's checking to make sure she's packing. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's-
no. I was
No, I legally hunt, so no, I'm not a felon.
I wasn't concerned about that. It was just one of the things where we don't know the final language of that, but based on the little snippet, it can't be anything good in that bill. What
No.
it can be is more harass gun owners.
Right. And like you said, it's redundant because it's already covered under federal law.
And plus, there are state laws that would cover certain of these circumstances. Second
But I
is,
think what Gary's trying to get at is he's trying to make a purchase, or a sale, I should say,
Yep.
to me. He's not going to sit here and go through an entire background check and, grill me with the 20 questions and this and that. He's taking it upon faith on me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I ask him, hey, how much for that gun? I want to buy it. I'm not saying it is or it isn't his job to turn around and check to see if I am a convicted felon or not. But I think that's where he's trying to go with that. It's really not his responsibility. It's
Right.
just a transaction.
The burden shouldn't be on the seller to know that. Yeah.
Where a gun owner or store that sells, they're forbidden by federal law to sell a firearm to a felon or a known felon or whatever, or somebody that's going to purchase it for a felon.
Right.
yep. And so now we're going to go down to the others, which is, and these bills each have numbers. Like, for example, the next one is 2016, which is the legislative year.
Yeah.
And it's dash 2559, requiring firearms owners to have liability insurance. What they're trying to do is price firearm owners out of the marketplace.
Right.
First of all, liability insurance is quite frankly expensive. And when the insurance company learns that in order for you to have firearms, you have to have liability insurance, what are they going to do to the rates?
Jack them right up.
Because they know you have to have them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so you're really going to be a
They're
captive.
trying to do that at the federal level too.
The next thing that she's prohibited is prohibiting the possession of a flamethrower. Now, one
What's
of the
wrong with that? How
There-
are you going to do a barbecue?
Well, yeah. If you want it to be fun, you go big or go home.
Exactly.
But the bottom line is a lot of the things that I think she's going to
Do you
try.
know anybody that owns a flamethrower?
I don't think you legally can.
Well,
I don't know.
under-
Not operable.
Well, under NFA, there's a lot of things you can own, but you have to go through all sorts of procedure, pay a $200 tax stamp.
Oh, it's like a machine gun then.
Well, here's the way I would understand it. And we all know how many legally owned machine guns have ever been used in crimes in the United States, either one or two, depending on who you ask. One by an off-duty Ohio cop.
Oh, okay.
And there's arguable about a second one a few years ago. So
Okay.
when you talk about 100+ years of history, and that few amounts, the bottom line is
They're never used anyway, so it's
right.
pointless.
People just don't use them illegally.
Yeah, because for people that are in the audience that don't know, if you want an actual machine gun, and an actual machine gun means a weapon that if you click the right switch, and you have a 30-round clip, and you pull the trigger and hold it, it automatically shoots all those rounds until it is empty.
So when someone says automatic weapon, that's
What an
most
automatic
referring to.
weapon
Okay.
is. And to get one legally, you have to get a federal $200 stamp. You apply to the federal government. They do a background check. They're, from what I understand, are able to call you up and ask to inspect the weapon at any time they may choose. So it's not like a regular firearm purchase.
Yeah.
The guns cost $5,000 and up. I am a moron because I actually had the opportunity in the late 80s to buy an $800 M1 carbine kit to make it into fully automatic for $800.
Oh my gal.
That would be worth, I don't know, $10,000 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
But because the thing is, what they did is first they couldn't outlaw machine guns, okay, constitutionally. So what they did is they taxed them. So
Okay.
then they added a stamp that goes along with the gun,
Okay.
and that's the $200 fee.
Yeah.
And so then somewhere I think in the 70s they said, oh yeah, we're not making any more stamps.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah. So
May 19th, 1986.
86. Okay.
May 19th, 1986, a bill called FOPA, the Firearm Owners Protection Act, okay?
Right.
Tell me how protective it is when we ban something.
Right.
And at the last minute, that clause was added onto it, and people were tricked. People had supported the bill all along, didn't know until after we have to pass it till we know what's in it. So we pass it, and they've added that last clause, which banned all machine gun production after May 1986. Other than what was in the pipe, other than for, of course, law enforcement, military, all these exceptions. But for you and I, all it did was freeze production, freeze supply, and jack the prices through the roof.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it really did. And that was a really dark day. So May 19th.
Who was the president?
Oh my God, you're asking me ancient history? I couldn't tell you.
That would
In
have been
86?
Reagan, I would
Reagan,
think.
yeah, in
yeah.
the second term.
So
yeah.
Reagan signed that.
I think that he did.
It would have
because-
been him or Bush.
Oh, I would believe Bush would sign it.
I would believe Bush would sign,
Sign
it.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that was he was.
But that
That
would
would
be 88.
That
So
would
if
be
this was 86,
88.
it was
He
still
got elected
Reagan.
in 88, so that was Reagan
That's-
signed the probably that's one of the worst anti-Second Amendment bills ever got through.
Yeah.
That was when he was still working on the Star Wars program, though, too, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Here's the really sad thing about that is that a lot of people were tricked because up to that point it had a lot of good modifications in, and that was like what I call a Johnny come lately add-on amendment to it,
Yeah.
and it was a really, really dark day. Now,
But so anyway, for the viewers, that's what a fully automatic weapon is. It's almost impossible to get it, and I assume the flamethrower.
What?
First day with the new mouth, and I'm sure the flamethrower is part and parcel of that thing. So it's not something people can easily get, nor, like you said, is it
Just
once
isn't
in
used
100 years is it used in a crime. So
Yeah.
it's not a threat to anybody.
absolutely
Usually,
not.
it's the people who are pretty darn well off can actually afford to have a machine gun and or feed it.
Yes. Feeding it is probably the most expensive because if you look at some of those that run, let's say, 800 rounds a minute,
Right.
currently, how much is 1,000 rounds of 308?
Oh God, it's got to be a couple $100 anyway.
I think they're a little more than that, but
No,
let's say
170. It's 170, 340 for 1,000 round, 223. So probably $500 for 308.
so if you take 10
I'm
minutes of
guessing, I don't
shooting
know.
at $500 basically a minute, okay, you know what I'm saying? Think about it. If you're running 800,000
Right.
rounds, even 600 rounds a minute, you're talking $500 every time you basically run a minute worth through it. That's really expensive shooting. The
Yeah.
average person. The other thing is, of course, with machine guns at least, they cannot really take what's called sustained fire because what you do is you heat the barrel and other components. So a lot of people do 3-round bursts or give them burst.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is there's a lot of problems with heat,
Yeah.
you know, and lack of heat dissipation for certain ones. And so
And jam.
there,
Well, yes. Actually, you can start melting barrels and stuff if you go too far.
that's always So next we have in what I call our bad legislation in New Hampshire. So everyone's got to be watching in the State House this year and hopefully coming to hearings and fighting these bad bills. 2561, and again, Catherine Rogers is a prime sponsor, and at this point, the
Find out what
Yeah, she's a Dem.
huh, what a shocker.
only sponsor of this, prohibiting firearms in certain public places. Now, what public place she wants to prohibit them, I don't know, but I can't think of any place that we need to prohibit them.
No.
We need to let them in more places,
Right,
is the bottom line. And next, all I could think of is CDC on the big screen. You know how certain things, you hear something about it? Her bill number 2562, requiring the collection of data relative to firearm-related death and injuries. Does that not sound like CDC manipulation of data coming
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
I wanted to tell, Representative Rogers, gee, we got the CDC to manipulate data. We don't need to spend money in the state of New Hampshire to do that. They do a fine job of it.
Right.
They take our
The federal government already keeps pretty close tabs on all that stuff anyway under the, is it the CDC or the FBI?
Well, the CDC produces bad data, which is why we took a bunch of money away from them. The Fed
Right.
said Uniform Uniform Crime Reports, Statistical Abstracts, the United States, the City-County Data Book. There's all sorts of federal statistics that can be manipulated by the anti-gunners. They don't need any more statistics to manipulate.
Right.
It's like the time when all of a sudden the childhood death rate went up. Well, what they did was they categorized up to 19-year-olds as children. And most of those at that age, 16 and 19, were gangbanger deaths, but they were talking about children from firearm deaths. Okay, well, children, my foot, these weren't kids getting hurt with guns. These were gangbangers killing each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a big difference.
So as far as that goes, where everybody out there turns around and it does irritate me to a point where everybody will we need tougher laws on guns. We need this. We need to ban them. Blah blah blah. I don't think that's gonna ever solve anything, because if you turn around and you put up gun-free zones everywhere, to where people like you, I, Matt, whoever else that open carries or conceals carries, this and that, now we can't go into any place. But when has that ever stopped a criminal that
Right.
shouldn't be possessing a firearm, never mind going in there to commit a felony of a robbery or anything like that? So
Yeah.
don't you think maybe we need tougher laws on them criminals that are committing these crimes, and let's stop giving them 1, 2 to 5 years and then letting them back out in the streets and doing it all over again?
I don't think we need tougher laws. We've got 20,000 laws on the book. What I think we need to do...
Oh, I didn't say more. I said tougher. Increase the penalties on them. Enforce the penalties.
Oh,
Enforcing is probably a bigger variable, but
yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah.
if you think about it,
because there's already like a basically a gradient. If you go in and rob a store, okay, that you're not probably going to do time. You probably do time, but it'll
Yeah.
be short. You
You're
go
probably
and do
looking
an
at 3 to 5.
armed robbery on that store, and you're doing a lot of time. There's already a much harsher penalty for doing a crime with a firearm as opposed to without, or a weapon. Actually, I'm not
whether
sure
it's
even.
violence or the threat of violence.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the bottom line is that we've got to look at is that this year we have more what appear to be on their face anti-firearm bills than I've seen in 20 years in this state.
Really?
Yeah. Every year I go through the painful process. There were 677 LSRs, legislative service requests. So I read the title to every one of them. Every one.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes a while. And put them all in these little handy dandy sheets,
Yeah.
put it all together. And then what you have to do once the actual text of these bills is out, you have to go and read the text, because sometimes they trick you.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, those reprehensibles, they trick us. What happens
I
is
prefer Mr. Reprehensible.
Mr. Reprehensible. Mr. Reprehensible. I can't even talk about they're bad, because what happens is they'll say something about relative to eating ice cream on Sunday, and it's to ban automobiles, or something that has nothing to do with nothing. So you actually have to read the LSRs, the text, after they've drafted the language.
Right.
And the bottom line is that this year, just based on the language alone, the snippets of the LSRs, is enough really, really bad things. We talk about every particular thing you can imagine. And for example, one of the things that really got to me is 2646. allowing public libraries to run certain privacy software. Here's what this tells me,
Wow.
is that they should be allowed to run the privacy software, but there was a big hullabaloo about one particular library. I think it was was it Seabrook or Portsmouth or what? Do you remember?
I forget what town it was in, but I know the case
Yeah,
you're talking
and
about.
Talking
basically,
about-
the cops didn't want them to run the privacy software. The cops wanted them to be tracking everybody that came to the library and got on a computer.
Right.
So, the privacy software is to keep all the records private.
Yes,
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
which I think is a good idea. Now, I understand that if we were to do everything you could imagine, like, George Orwell's 1984, we might not have any rapes, robberies, or drug use, or whatever it is that the person objects to. But the bottom line is we wouldn't have any civil liberties either.
Right.
No,
Right.
you wouldn't.
And so, I'm looking at this.
So you really don't. So I can put you on record as not wanting a utopian society.
If you would call that a utopian society, I'm not sure that I would. I look at that and I say, okay, is that the way it should be? Now, one bill that one LSR that I'm particularly interested to read the text of is 2016-2709, and it's relative to the acquisition and use of certain equipment by state and local law enforcement agencies. And I'm wondering what's going to be in it, because last year, I believe it was Representative J.R. Hole sponsored a bill, and I thought it was great. It was what we called the none for me, the none for thee bill. And basically what it said is if I can't, as a private citizen, buy this stuff, then you, as the people, the law enforcement who may erroneously come to arrest me, shouldn't get this stuff,
Right.
whatever the equipment is.
Right.
And I
So
thought,
if I can't have a Bearcat, you can't have a Bearcat.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No Bearcat for you.
Which
no
seems fair.
Yeah, that's exactly seems fair. Because, the thing that I think a lot of people like me are concerned about, how many times do we hear about the police battering down the wrong door, about the police shooting the wrong person, about the police going to the wrong place?
Yep.
And that concerns me, because what the heck
What,
would I do?
what happened to JR's bill then?
I believe it was killed, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah.
How did you vote on it?
I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it was killed. I could be wrong. I think it was one of them died. It didn't go into the holding pond to come up again next year.
Okay. The holding pond.
I call it the holding pond. What they do with some bills is they trick us for good or for evil. And they put them in some sort of subcommittee, study committee. We're going to put it down. And then it resurfaces at the best or worst time, and comes to life when people who aren't really politically savvy thinks it's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or procedurally savvy, I guess I would use the term.
Right. Yeah. It goes into interim study.
Yeah. That's exactly what. But most people don't understand is it can come out of interim study.
Right.
As quickly as it comes in, it can come out.
Yeah. Most of the anti-gun bills you mentioned so far, I can't. Most of them, I think, are dead on arrival. The one that might gain some ground is the in certain places. It depends on what certain places she says, because there's a pretty heavy liberal leaning in the New Hampshire legislature that rears its ugly head periodically. That
Yeah.
might have some issues. But I agree with you. I mean, we should be opening up more areas to guns rather than decreasing. Gun-free zones are basically, criminal gravity. Criminals gravitate to them because nobody's going to defend themselves. They're good.
Shooting fish in a pond.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And even the thing that I talk about that always amazes me is how we treat, by we I mean New Hampshire, treat people who want to check their firearm. And by law, you have to be able to check your firearms in a courthouse. Okay?
You do?
Yep.
Oh, in New Hampshire, absolutely.
They have to have a lockbox
They have to
somewhere.
have a lockbox for you. Absolutely.
When?
Since forever.
Really?
But let me tell you what happens. Let me tell you the reality. I've had more than one person tell me, even in Merrimack, they're told, go out and put it in your car. We don't want to deal with it. Okay? Or better yet, I heard this was happening at Concord District Court, and so I went and checked it out myself, and by golly, they were telling the truth. What they were doing, and the courts are not subject to right to know, so I couldn't get information to prove this, is that you get to the door, and they ask you for a copy of your license, okay? And I have a problem with that. And your driver's license, your basically identification. Now, what they were doing with that information while you were going about your business is a couple of things. They were running a check on you, which I have a huge problem with. They were taking down and recording the serial number on your gun and keeping that. And in some cases, we have been told they had a court officer following you around, because after all, if you checked a gun in, you're probably dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a huge problem with that. So what I did was, to check it out, I put on an old pair of jeans and a sweatshirt and walked into the court. I walked in carrying openly. And first they asked me for my identification, for my license. And I said, I don't have to have a license. I'm carrying openly. Well, you have to have a license. I said, no, actually, I don't. I have to have identification. I said, why? I just want to check a gun in. And I deliberately carried an old firearm that I don't give a crap about if they record the serial number.
Yeah.
Okay, so man takes it from me. Or actually, I hand it to him. Muzzle's all over the place, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm like, you might want to keep that muzzle down.
Yeah.
And so we've got like hard surface floors. He's trying to unload it. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm gonna unload it and put it there. I said, well, you might want to look. I'm just watching him. I'm not bothering to tell him. You can see big as life and twice as pretty. He's got a slide safety on, which tells me he didn't know how to operate a gun with a slide safety.
Right.
He's the one checking it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like basic.
That's what I thought. And so, and I'm thinking there, loading and unloading is the most dangerous time. Why wouldn't you leave the darn thing alone and just put it whatever?
Yeah.
And so he and I were having some verbal, shall we say, disagreements about what was going to happen. And I had I wanted to see if what everyone told me was true.
Yeah.
And it appeared to be true, quite frankly. And I actually have the policy in writing that was supplied to me by the head of security for the AOC. So this isn't speculation about how they catalog your serial number and all that. This is actually in writing, written policy from the courts.
Wow.
And so do you as a legislature not have a problem with all that?
I do, but the time to have introduced legislation has passed about a month or two ago.
Right. But I'm just saying going forward, and when court personnel come and tell you there's one of these lock boxes in every court, I just don't think it works. And let me tell you something, the sharp contrast, which is to me should embarrass everyone in New Hampshire. I practice law in Massachusetts as well. Let me tell you how it works in Massachusetts. You walk in the line, you say to them, I have a firearm to check. They said, okay. Now, if you're a regular person, you have to produce a license to carry. If you're counsel, you don't have to, because it's presumed you actually follow the law. And you've got a lot on the line to not follow it. And they give you these little, I guess you'd say, lock boxes, just like you get in airports where you take the key. You put all of your stuff in there while they watch you. You take the key and you walk away. Okay, now, Massachusetts, which in general has hideous gun laws and hideous policies, their courts are very human and decent and nice in that way. And we really could learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
Because I personally will leave my firearm in a car in New Hampshire every day of the week. Because you think I'm going to let some person handle my firearm and treat it like that and lay it down there on a shelf with everybody else's? No, thank you.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
no, thank you. That's just not. It doesn't seem safe. It doesn't seem smart. It doesn't seem good.
Right,
You know? And I just think about that all the time.
What
And
is, okay, here's another question. I go to the school to pick up my grandkids. I don't think I'm supposed to have a gun on me when I'm in there. I'm not positive, actually. So just out of, you might answer that secondarily, but so out of concern with, because I'm unsure of what the law is, I say, okay, I just put it in my glove compartment and lock my car. What is the liability if somebody sees me, breaks into my car and steals my gun? Am I now liable for...
It's a good question.
well, here's the really funny thing, and by
Funny,
funny,
you don't mean good
funny.
funny.
I don't mean good. There's always a bad funny thing. Is that in New Hampshire, it's arguable, but that because of the wording, the language in our licenses, I tell people that it's a gray area, and I personally avoid gray areas like the plague.
Right.
So, in most states, you can lawfully, or in many states, you may lawfully carry firearms if you have a license to carry in a quote-unquote school zone. In New Hampshire, I personally do not, and here is why. The language that is used in the issuing of our licenses to carry could be interpreted one way or the other. And because I always say I don't want to walk in the gray, okay, I say that I don't bring firearms on school property at all, because that's what it comes down to. the little driveway circle where you go pick up the kids, no firearms from me come in that little driveway. If there's a school parking lot, none of mine go there. So let's say I go to speak at schools, because sometimes I get asked to speak at schools. I park on a public street, so I'm not on school property, and leave all my guns in the car, and then go speak.
Guns. She's like in the old Wild West pulling them all out.
Well, no. Well, here's the way I look at it: is firearms are mechanical objects, okay? And anybody, like when I bought my truck, I asked for a full-size, brand-new spare tire under the truck, not a donut spare tire, right? And even though I'm buying a brand-new truck, well, it was new a few years ago, tires break, tires get flat, and if you have a flat tire, I want a full-size spare. Okay, and it's
Donut would look funny on a little big truck, though.
yeah, it would. But the other thing is, no matter how well you maintain your firearm, firearms break. It
Right.
just happens. And so I think carrying a spare firearm is prudent. You know, I just think it's crazy. If you carry one firearm, why wouldn't you carry an extra one or so? Because the
Or so. I like that.
so,
I like
yeah.
that.
or so it doesn't hurt to have an extra. You know, I have a couple tubes of lipstick just in case. You know, one could run out or something. All the things in life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, and so I say that is it doesn't hurt to have an extra, because the other thing is, statistically speaking, you're going to be attacked by 2 or more people. Normal people don't attack other people. It
No,
just
no, they
isn't.
don't.
And so the person could be drugged, the person could be high, the person could be drunk, but normal people just don't go around attacking other people. And so people who are truly drugged or full of alcohol or full of who knows what
Right.
don't normally feel pain like other people do.
No, if they're on heroin, they're not going to feel any pain. So
They're
if you're,
impervious.
yeah,
And so you are going to require more ammunition to stop the threat.
you need enough lead so they get weighed down anyway.
You just need to stop the threat. And so, and there have been clinical studies, and it depends on which doctor you ask, that once a person is clinically dead, if you get center mass shots and literally shoot their heart out, they have a period of time with purposeful activity available to them. And it's really pretty fascinating. It depends on which doctor you ask, whether it's 30 seconds, 1 minute, you know, whatever. It depends on what doctor you ask. But anybody who's been to the range and timed themselves with like a pack timer knows how many shots you can put down range in, let's say, 30 seconds. That's a lot of time, a lot of shots sometimes. And so by the same token, that same person who you are defending yourself against can still have purposeful activity. So you really got to be able to terminate the threat, or at least stop the threat, you know, to stop that threat from coming at you. And that may mean a lot more
Well,
ammunition.
you have a lot of politicians that can go on for days without a brain, so
Yes.
Or a heart.
or a heart.
Or a
yeah.
heart.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
the bottom line is, when that type of thing happens, you've got to be able to me, to have the self-defense tools at your disposal to take care of that type of thing.
Right.
And so I don't think carrying an extra firearm or a couple extra mags is a bad idea, any more than I tell people, if you buy an umbrella policy, buy the most insurance you can afford. You know, when you do certain things, it's not much work to get another one. And like I said, anybody who's been at the range and had a firearm jam, anyone who's had a spring break, no matter how good you maintain anything, any mechanical object can break.
Right.
And so I just think that's a really good idea. Now, I'll tell you what, I am concerned that this year we're going to have to spend a lot of time with, you know, freedom isn't free. You know that song? Did anybody ever learn the song? So freedom isn't free. Yeah. And so I think that we're going to have to spend a lot of time fighting a whole lot of bad bills that just really could take away our right to self-defense.
I'm curious, do you know why you said it hasn't been this bad in 20 years? Do you know what's driving that all of a sudden?
You know what? I don't. I don't know if it's just a random event. I don't know if randomly all these particular representatives decided.
Well, you said it's mostly from one legislator.
Well, the what I consider the worst ones based on the title are all from the same legislator. Yes.
Okay, now this is her first term,
Is it?
I think, isn't it?
She's
I thought-
ambitious.
I thought that
Did
she.
you look at her thing on the court website?
Yeah.
Court?
Yeah, she's a Democrat.
Did it say incumbent?
Uh,
Or do you still?
I did not notice.
I
can
thought
look.
that she was reelected. I thought this was
Oh,
not her
maybe.
first. I could be wrong.
Because it's the second year,
What?
and
I'm sorry, what was her first name?
Catherine.
Catherine, okay. Catherine Rogers. Okay.
Yep, Catherine Rogers with a K.
it's a second term, So she could be just appeasing people just before, so she's in the news just before the election or something like that, of quote unquote standing against the gun lobby and all that other BS they claim. Because I can't see, you didn't mention anything that I can imagine even getting through except for that one.
You know,
She is an incumbent, so it's
Oh,
not,
okay,
not
so,
her
okay.
first.
I didn't think it was her first
All
term,
right,
but
so-
Yeah, never even heard of her before.
Probably
Yeah,
know her,
she's-
but I'm brain dead, so.
yeah, she used to be the county attorney,
Right.
like I said, in Merrimack.
Yeah,
And so I'm really kind of disappointed because in the position of the county attorney, she should have seen the victims, the,
Her fifth term.
fifth term.
She's in her fifth term. In
So I do
in the
know her, I
Hampshire
just
House.
can't remember.
Yeah,
She
there's
is-
a picture of her.
she's a blonde and she's more petite, a shorter woman.
Okay.
I think she has difficulty walking. She has a cane or two.
Oh, that's probably because Kyle Tasker keeps tripping her. I don't know, maybe.
So
Just a guess. I don't know. I'm not saying that he did. I'm just
Right,
saying that
right.
could
You're
have
just
been-
speculating.
I'm speculating.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you look at all of the, like I said, the other bills, I'm curious, some, I think, really focus on jurors, which I think is important. Some of them, at least from the titles, are those that would educate jurors. Because what we have as jurors in this country literally do not do, some of them know that they can do their duty, which I believe they can nullify what they dislike.
Well, we actually we voted on that in, I think, 2011 or 12, jury nullification. It was to me, was one of the coolest things that happened when O'Brien was Speaker, was jury nullification. And then I think the courts took what was obviously intended and have decided to misinterpret it.
I believe that's exactly what happens. And I really think some things are what I call willful blindness. And when someone doesn't like or disagrees with what you've done, they take it into a pretzel, and they make
Sure.
what was a straight line just not be a path that you just can't get to or get through.
Right, yeah.
And so
Now, have you tried to use jury nullification as a defense attorney?
I have, and it turned out the times that I thought I was going to use it in cases I thought were going to try, the person pled. And so I didn't get to the point where it became an issue.
Okay.
And so far, what the courts have done is what's called the Wentworth instruction. And I don't find
The
that-
Wentworth instruction is so you would have to have sit through hearings to understand what it meant.
right. And I don't think Wentworth is really helpful
Right.
as jury nullification is. I
Just
consider
for the viewers, Wentworth decision was a decision as to what the jury can be instructed, what its rights were as a jury. And I have forgotten the language they used, but it's carefully crafted so that it does give them permission to nullify, but I forget how it's worded, but you have to know that it's there. You have to be an informed juror to begin with to understand what it meant.
See, I kind of take a little different point of view than you. I don't even think it gives them the ability to nullify. I think it lays out a burden of proof on guilt or innocence is the way I read it. But I think the issue is still that even then, I don't think that's clear enough and good enough.
It
if
is
you were
not
the
even close.
Yeah. Because I always tell people when they read it, I say, imagine you in the defense seat. Okay, you're the defendant and you're facing 15 years. Tell me if you'd like that instruction. And then people sit back and they're like, oh. And I go, that's what you need to do.
Because they said that the court told us when it came to my committee that the Wentworth decision was already in the law and there was no need for jury nullification. That's what they said.
The check's in the mail.
So then we passed jury nullification in spite of that.
Yep.
So they knew what we were trying to do, and they knew or claimed that jury nullification was already in effect by virtue of the Wentworth instruction, and we passed it anyway, so therefore we absolutely must have disagreed with them, and now they've just gone back to the Wentworth decision is good enough, which is just activism, a judiciary that has no regard for the legislature or the will of the people.
I think that is why we should elect trial judges. I've always said this.
Really? Yeah.
Absolutely. Most of the states, I believe, and I could be off on one, I believe 37 states in the country elect trial judges.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I
Wow.
can't remember if the number is 37, 36, 39. It's in the 30s, high
Okay.
30s.
Wow.
And some states even elect higher level judges. And I think the problem is that judges are politically appointed, and the bottom line is they're not accountable to the people unless they
Right.
rape, rob, or steal, and none of them are dumb enough to do that. Okay, unless they do some egregious act. Okay.
Yeah, they have to go way, and even if they go over the line, they're still good because they'll still circle the wagon and protect each other.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
the bottom line is that they have a job for life, and so they have absolutely no concern about doing, even if they don't do the will of the legislature. What are you going to do to them?
Right.
Right.
You can't do anything to them as a practical matter. Where, you know,
Well, no, actually, you could if the legislature had will. In other words, the judge
Yeah.
who decided that the Wentworth decision was good enough,
Yep.
in spite of the law we passed, in spite of the testimony, you could say that you deliberately disregarded the will of the legislature, who has the authority to write law,
Yep.
and therefore it's what would you call it, malfeasance, or
You're talking like a bill of
a
address.
bill of address or an impeachment based on just doing that. If we had the will, the legislature, but the legislature, the higher up you go, the more they're in the tank with the people are in the tank for the judiciary or whichever department they're associated with. They become, it's a Stockholm syndrome or something.
The system protects itself.
The system protects itself. I wanted to make a couple points before we run out of time. That and I don't know, I'd like to get feedback from you. Was one, they had the Benghazi hearings where Hillary testified. And what I don't understand, because Hillary admitted that they knew it was in her emails, admitted they knew that it was a terrorist attack on, or a planned attack on the embassy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And yet she told the American people and the people that were the family of the dead that it was, because of the result of this movie. I get that, all right? I think that's egregious and horrible and disrespectful to the people who passed away and the soldiers who passed away and their families. But what I don't get is why everybody isn't tweaking over the fact that not only did they fabricate that story about the movie, but they actually had the poor SOB arrested and went to jail.
It is odd. It's like that part's been sort of forgotten about by everybody.
I just can't. I don't get it.
Yeah, it is.
It's
strange.
like you want to elect a woman president of the United States who used her position of authority to have somebody forcefully arrested and put in jail to support your BS lie.
And whatever happened to that guy? We don't.
What-
even
He
know,
was
do
in.
we?
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
He was
really?
in jail for quite a while.
What prison is he in?
I think it was California, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
They basically trumped up charges. He was on parole for something, so they said, "Well, you lied to your parole officer,"
Oh.
which is kind of ironic because they were lying about the whole thing, and yet they get him for
That's entrapment.
yeah.
in my
yeah.
opinion.
So I was wondering what you thought about that. That was one.
Well, you know what? I think it's horrible, but it goes along with, look at the Innocence Project. How many people have been freed by the Innocence Project
Oh,
who
yeah.
are actually innocent? We're not talking about technical lawyer things.
Right.
We're talking about actual innocent.
DNA testing and
Yeah.
That's
we're
why I
talk-
oppose the death penalty. I always have.
You know, and see, those people spent, many of them, years, even decades in prison wrongfully.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you look at this man, the question we have is, or at least the question I have, did he have legal representation?
right.
And because sometimes in some states at parole revocation hearings, even though you're at loss for liberty, potential loss of liberty, some people think that's an administrative hearing. I'm like, administrative. If you're going to go back to prison, that to me is loss of liberty.
Right.
And so, did he have representation?
I doubt it. I just think they threw him under the bus as quick as they could to say, "Oh, look, we're doing something."
Yeah, yeah, I think that is awful, and I think that politicians still, and they go after people who don't agree with them. Any organization that has power, and
Like the IRS going after certain groups. The same
absolutely,
thing.
absolutely,
I don't understand. I don't understand how people can even consider voting for that woman.
yeah. No, every time she opens her lips, I wonder if has one truthful word ever come out of her mouth.
Well, it doesn't matter if she's willing to lie and put somebody in prison
That's wrong.
to get Obama reelected. What is she willing to lie about, and who is she willing to torment so that she can get in prison? The other one, we are almost out of time. The other one I want to get to is, please, my friends, on if you're looking at TV or looking on Facebook for information, double check stuff. Ted Turner, who I think is pretty close to a commie, which is really weird for such a wealthy person. But anyway, was quoted as saying on Facebook, I see this big quote, Ted Turner says the soldiers committing suicide in Afghanistan, that's a good thing. So I says, no way, the guy is not that stupid. Okay? So I had to go and look it up because I'm not going to repost something like that without checking it, because it was so egregious.
Yeah.
What he was saying was that the fact that these soldiers are in Afghanistan are so tormented by what they see and what's going on, and they're committing suicide, it at least shows that we haven't completely lost our humanity.
Right.
That's what his point was. He said it badly.
Yeah.
It was a direct quote,
Yep.
but that's not what he meant.
Right.
And it aggravates the heck out of me.
See it all the time.
When Republicans quote somebody out of context just to torment them, and vice versa, the Democrats do it. It's just,
Yep.
they're doing that to Ben Carson all the time over that
Yep.
Muslim thing. If you listen to why he said a Muslim president wouldn't be a good thing, he was talking about a devout Muslim who places Sharia law over the Constitution.
Yeah, you know what's really funny is that what about overseas, about those soldiers who have been disciplined for refusing to basically go along with
Child
rape?
abuse.
Yeah.
Rape. Yeah.
Right. Those soldiers to me they're heroes to begin with, but they're
agree.
heroes, and to be punished
Yeah.
is just
disgusting.
horrible.
It is horrible. On that horrible note, next week. What do I got? Here it is.
Yeah. You wrote it on yourself.
No, I didn't write it
oh.
on myself. A representative from SG
Sober
Grid. It's a app for your phone. So if you're
Oh,
if
you were telling me about this.
yes, it's something I invented that had already been invented.
Yes.
But the guy from Sober Grid's coming on next week. It's a really
Excellent.
cool app for your phone. So get your phones out, download the app, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.